Welcome to Mile High Reefers. I'm Scott Anderson, and today we're going to talk about picking the best camera for taking pictures of and videoing your reef tank. This is actually something I feel uniquely qualified to do because this is kind of what I've spent the last 8-10 years doing. So I've been doing it kind of semi-pro as a YouTuber. I've worked professionally in the coral industry, and recently I've been on an odyssey to find kind of the best camera for me. But I'm a special case, and I'm going to kind of go over all the options and what really makes sense for me, for you, and basically anybody else out there. So to begin with, while we wait for people to join up, I'm going to start just giving you guys a brief history of my time and my history with cameras. So we'll do this we'll make it fast, we'll make it quick, and then we'll really get into the meat of all of this. So to begin with, I was born into the photography industry, almost literally. When I was born, my dad worked for Kodak. When I got out of high school, I went and worked for Kodak. Kodak was a fantastic job. I love the company, but they kind of went bankrupt. Oops. So that job ended, and about the same time my job ended at Kodak is when I started my YouTube channel. So when I started my reef tank, I worked for Kodak, and that's when I was getting garbage like this. So this is an old school Kodak point and shoot, absolute garbage. And for the most part these days, holy crap, Gold Slinger, thank you so much. That's amazing. Wow, thank you. Yeah, $19.99. Thank you, Gold Slinger. I really appreciate it. But yeah, they made these. This camera sucked, and for the most part, point and shoots aren't going to be what you want. Really, for a lot of people, you probably already have the best camera possible for taking videos and pictures of anything with reef tanks. But we'll get to that because this point and shoot that I bought sucked. I loved Kodak, but it's a piece of garbage. But it sucked. So the next thing I shot with were these bad boys. So this is the Kodak version. This is that old Cisco flip. And this is quite literally what I started my channel on, are these two little cameras here. 2012, they were perfectly serviceable. They kind of worked. But by today's standards, they're garbage. You won't want to use them. I keep them for nostalgia. They're fun. I'm into old cameras and stuff. Downside with the Kodak is this rubbery stuff has gone bad, and it probably looks like crap on camera. Well, that's because the rubber's basically turning into petroleum and it's gotten all sticky. So, needing a camera upgrade, I went with the Nikon. The Nikon is better. So this is one of those Nikon super zooms. This was kind of all the rage in like 2012, and that's what I shot with. So probably the first 2 years of my channel were shot with those two cameras and this one. The super zooms are good if you're a bird photographer and you want to take some occasional shots of your aquarium, but for the most part, skip these two. They're not going to get you where you want to be unless you're trying to film something way far back in a reef tank. It worked great for its day, but these days, it's probably not the best. So I'm going to break into this real quick and just say thank you to all of you watching. And as we get towards the end, I'll answer whatever questions we have. So put them over in the chat, and I will go through all of it. So in the chat, thank you. Chef Kuma, Fade to Black, you are always awesome. I really need to get down to Colorado Springs and check out your tank. That's on my list of things to do. I have not forgotten you. I promise. And then, of course, Gold Slinger. Oh, you're amazing. Thank you so much for that super chat. It's amazing. All right. So those were the big ones. And then, of course, about that time, cell phones became the big thing. This is an old Windows phone. This was kind of my favorite camera phone of all time, and I loved it. It's still great, except it's dead. So really, most of you guys are probably going to be wanting to shoot on your cell phone. The difference between this, which is an iPhone XS, and this, my Panasonic G85, in actual video quality, these guys are real close, except you probably already have that. We'll get more into that. So that kind of brings me to the next camera I shot with, which is my Panasonic G85. This is micro four thirds. It's a wonderful camera other than the autofocus. It was fantastic. Great camera. I've got a nice f2.8 lens on here. It's really nice for what I do. And we'll talk about more about micro four thirds and all of that in a minute as to what you should pick. And of course, now we are at the big Sony. So this is the Sony A7 S3. This is the big boy toy. This is way more camera than somebody like me actually needs. And then I also used another camera, which I don't have on me. It's sitting over on the shelf charging up, but it's just an old school like video camera. You know what? Let me grab that. Why not, guys? We got nothing going on. And then there's the old Canon Vixia. I shot quite a lot of my channel on this as well. This was great because it had the flippy screen, so you could kind of see yourself with it. It had the big zoom. But, the image quality coming off of this wasn't much better than a cell phone. What was really nice about this was the flippy screen. The autofocus was really good, and the zoom was really good, so I could get stuff far back in the tank. I picked this thing up for like $200. Even today, something like this, I recommend if you're on a super budget and you need that big zoom. This is really going to get you where you want to be if you're on a really low budget and you need a big zoom. Otherwise, I would look elsewhere, but I still think a little camcorder like this has its place for those reasons. So let's get a little more into the advice side, because I'm going to be basically focusing on a couple little different types of cameras. So the first one is going to be the cell phone. Honestly, for most people out there, this is going to be your best answer. I use both iPhone and Android over the years. Both do great video. Both have their purposes. Both are really pretty good. Really, your first choice for picking the camera is your OS. What do you want? Do you want Apple or do you want Android? Apple, I struggle with playing nicely with my PC. Biggest downside to Apple, in my opinion. Android plays with my PC very nicely. It's just, I've personally never had the phone quality, and I just find it really hard to beat the video quality coming off of an iPhone. So these two are huge for me. So as far as recommendations go, top tier cell phones are insane. Those awesome flagships like your Notes and the new iPhone 12 Max are going to be better than most cameras like this. I'm not kidding you. Apple and Google and Samsung dump billions into their phone development every year. A large portion of that goes towards the cell phone sensor. They've started adding the extra lenses in here. So now we get the zoom, we get the super wide angle. The mics are really good in these. The screens are really good in these. And the video quality and stabilization coming off of these is insane. Now, you'll never beat the sensor size and the glass in a bigger camera. Except for one little thing, software. Apple and Google are so much further ahead with their software than Panasonic or Sony or Canon or Nikon or anybody else. When it comes to actually processing that photo, cell phone's going to win every time. So that's kind of our next step on this. When I sold corals professionally, the majority of the pictures I took were with a cell phone. I took this to work with me almost every day. Probably 90% of my pictures I took were on a cell phone. The reason why, we just killed the camera. It's all right. The reason why is, well, processing, the computer power here, and gel filters. You guys know these gel filters. If you follow my channel, you'll know in the past I've maybe ragged on them a little bit, said, they're not my favorite, I don't love them, that kind of stuff. They have their place. For absolute best image quality, I'm not a fan. For popping it on and taking a quick snapshot, and
the moment you realize something is
that's embarrassing. For slapping it on and getting that quick snapshot so you can upload the image to Facebook, to send to a customer, to do whatever you want with, this is ideal. The workflow here is brilliant. You point it at your tank, you push the button, you hit the edit button, and you adjust. Holy crap, Gold Slinger. You're like my hero. $49.99. Get some salt. I can do that. Thank you so much. You're my hero. Okay. Wow. That took me off of what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay. I love it. So happy. Thank you so much. Okay. But the processing off of this is insane because I can push a button. I can get a pretty good image because of the gel filter. The gel filter is going to cut the blues because we all love our deep blues these days. It's going to cut the blues. I can hit that nice little edit button and then I can tweak it in software. Okay. First thing you guys are going to tell me is, well, now you're photoshopping your pictures and that's unethical and you shouldn't do that. No, that's not the case. Every picture you take is processed. Almost nobody's sending out the raw files. I mean, people who say that just don't understand how photography works. When I push the button here, it automatically processes it. From there, if you want to take it to another level, you have to tweak it yourself. It only becomes unethical when you take a coral and make it look like something it's not. That's when it becomes unethical. As long as that picture you put out to give to somebody is, as long as it represents that coral well, it's fine. I mean, nobody's going to get too upset if the picture's slightly off. Most of us kind of understand that as the color of the lighting changes, it affects the color a little bit. Photography is not perfect. As long as it's pretty close, most people are going to understand that. So these are fantastic. So if your budget for a camera is, I'd say $1,500 or less, and you aren't like me and aren't fascinated by cameras. If you're fascinated by cameras, feel absolutely free to pick up something like this G85. I'm going to talk about some better options in a minute. Feel absolutely free to pick up something like this. It is such a fun hobby. But if the idea of taking pictures or taking video here, putting it into a computer, running it through software, and doing it all manually, and then you get it uploaded sounds tedious, boring, and terrible, buy this. This is going to be a better camera most of the time. In fact, in auto mode, this camera kicks this camera's butt every time. To get this camera looking better than this camera, I have to work really hard. I personally enjoy that, but I realize that's not for everybody. So ideally, a nice smartphone with a good lens. So this is the iPhone XS. It is a 2-year-old iPhone, still takes great pictures, does great. I love the iPhones. Like I said, I've also used Androids and had great luck with those. So top tier cell phones have great images, great pictures, all of that. What if you're on a budget and, $1,000 cell phone sounds ridiculous to you? Because yeah, I mean, I think this thing was like $1,200, and that does seem like a ridiculous cost to so many people. And I totally understand that. Not everybody is in that kind of a price range. I love eBay. I've picked up several LG V40 cell phones off of eBay for family members. Ian's got one. Both my parents have them. So 2 years ago, it was LG's top of the line cell phone. Now you can pick one up for like $200, brand new, old stock, or at least you could 2 months ago when I ordered them for my parents. They were fantastic. So those are budget phones that take great pictures. So if you can't afford the new high end, look for last year's. Or there's even some great budget ones like the iPhone SE, Google Pixel, great cameras. Honestly, spend the $20 on the gel filter, play with the phone you have. And then when you're looking for a new camera, buy the best one you can get. Now, if it was me doing everything I do right now, I would personally be looking at the new iPhone 12 Max because it has 4K 60 10-bit. Holy crap, Gold Slinger. You really are slinging cash. $99 Christmas cash. You're my hero. Thank you so much. So much. I am humbled. Thank you. So those are the directions I would personally be looking at. For most of us, cell phones are the way to go. You've got your screen, you've got your editing software built in, you've got everything you need right here. Personally, I don't like editing on a cell phone, but there's no reason you cannot come or get your data off this phone and edit on a traditional PC or Mac. So these are fantastic in my preferred method unless you are a hobbyist or shooting for the absolute best video quality. For those people, we're going to have some fun and we're going to start moving up a little bit. Okay, so the first camera I want to talk about, it's really type of camera I want to talk about is Micro Four Thirds. And that is my Panasonic G85. These are fantastic cameras. You're going to have 2 different companies making cameras with Micro Four Thirds mounts. You've got Panasonic and Olympus. Olympus has sold their camera division off. It would be almost a perfect recommendation for more of a budget camera if you're not worried about the 10-bit video, because you can get the flippy screen, which I personally think is a must if you're doing the one-man band thing, because you want to be able to do that. Flippy screen's a must, but the Olympus has great autofocus. My Panasonic does not. This G85 has horribly bad autofocus. It's terrible. It sucks. And it's the main reason I upgraded this camera. Now, Panasonic has gotten better in the 4 years since this camera came out. And really, I made a mistake buying this particular camera. If I would have waited 3 months and shelled out an extra $1,000, I could have bought the GH5. which I believe is the same camera Jake Adams is still using. I've had the opportunity to use his camera. Its autofocus is far better than my G85. It's much better. So that camera was about $2,000. You can pick them up for $1,200-$1,300, brand new these days. 10-bit, 4K, 60. They make wonderful lenses. They are micro four thirds, so they let in about half the light of a full frame camera like that Sony A7 S3 I was showing you, but they're fantastic. I mean, if you watch Jake's Reef Builders videos, I mean, that guy's a master with those cameras, and that video's amazing. He does fantastic with it. So that is good enough. The only thing is personally, I was struggling to spend another $1,200-$1,300 for a camera that was pretty much this, but with a little bit better autofocus. But here's my real problem with micro four thirds these days is I think this mount's going away. Panasonic is putting most of their time and effort into full frame cameras, which I personally would have bought, but their autofocus still sucks. I don't know why they won't fix their autofocus. That's the biggest thing that kept me from buying Panasonic. I would have bought another Panasonic if they would have made one with good autofocus. They're just great cameras other than autofocus. Suckmaster. Okay. So everybody knows Canon and the Nikon. Nikon doesn't have a flippy screen, which makes it an out for me personally. But there's a couple nice Nikon mirrorless cameras out there. So if you are an old school Nikon shooter with Nikon glass, it's a good way to go. Canon. Oh, I was so close to buying the Canon. Canons are great. They got great glass, but all the ones that, I mean, the new Canon R5 is $3,800, shoots 45 megapixel images, and overheats. 8K. Has 8K, has everything you want, but if you put it in those high quality modes, it overheats. It's not usable. It's not good. So the R5, the R6, both of those overheat. Great cameras, but super expensive. And they're just not going to work for me personally for video. But if you're a hybrid shooter, mainly on the photography side, those cameras are wonderful. But the video side, they overheat. Suck. They've got like the Canon R and the RP, which are less expensive. They're full frame. They don't overheat, and they're 1080p. If you're good with 1080p and you're already in the Canon ecosystem, those are a pretty smart way to go. And the RP is only $1,000, which sounds expensive, but for a full frame camera, that's a pretty good deal. So Canon, Nikon, those are a little iffy. Personally, the one that's really interesting right now is Fuji. Fuji will give you the 10-bit. The autofocus isn't quite as good as the Sony, but it's pretty good. It's not as big of a sensor. It's a APS-C sensor, which is a smaller sensor, not full frame, which is, which is the way Fuji does it, unless you buy their medium format. They don't have a full frame, but they're beautiful lenses. They get great reviews. People love shooting with them. I haven't personally used one, but they're an interesting camera for the higher end user. But personally, for me right now, Sony is where it's at. They're full on mirrorless. They have the amazing glass out there. They've worked with Tamron and Sigma to come out with some of these less expensive lenses because glass gets crazy expensive on these cameras. They've got everything from APS-C all the way up to full frame Sony A7 S3. This is a 12 megapixel camera. It's video centric, but you can also get a 61 megapixel. Big problem is there, you won't get the flippy screen. Flippy screen is key for me. It's also not going to be 10-bit. So if you are mainly photography and not video, the A7R4 is a fantastic camera. And then the A7 III, which is the camera that this is somewhat based on. It doesn't have a flippy screen, but it has class-leading autofocus, takes brilliant images. I believe it's the same one Michael Ahrens is shooting with. Fantastic cameras. So that's kind of where it's come to camera-wise. In the world of photography, we are really looking at the big boys or the cell phones. Like everything else is kind of an also-ram. We've got some fun little stuff. Like I've got the little DJI action cam. You can get these guys like GoPros and stuff. These are really cool because you can actually put them in water. So this is something I haven't done a lot with, but if you watch the video I did of Chad's tank, he took his GoPro and set it in his tank and sent it around. So it gives you a lot of different options for different types of images you may want to do. So I thought, today we're getting close. I think it's Cyber Monday today. I've just bought a camera, so I thought we'd talk about aquariums and cameras. So I'm going to start going through. I'll see if we got any questions over here. If you've got some, we will answer any questions you may have. Goldslinger, live stream is freaking cool. Thank you so much, Goldslinger. You have been so amazing to me. I just can't thank you enough for your generosity. Auto Elysium, that is Ian on another channel. It's not my main one. Don't click on that one. Yeah, my other channel is Auto Elysium. I do cars, cameras, and aquariums. So this is great stuff. Mermaid's Reef. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that was so nice. Zach Shannon, the Olympus TG6 is my go-to. It's got a 14K white balance setting that's perfect for photos. Yes, so that is one of the things that makes this amazing. So people look at my videos and they wonder, how am I getting these crazy colors without a jello filter? Well, in these high-end cameras, you get some pretty amazing white balance abilities. You can adjust your white balance a lot. I can basically hit my white balance button. I can bring it up to like 9900K, and then I can adjust the blues, the reds, and the whites every direction. I can set it to auto white balance. I can put a card in there. There's so many options with white balance. The problem is this is a lot to learn. So you got to be a camera nerd to even justify getting this. Like when I've been shooting this bad boy for 4 years, but just picking it up, learning the new system, the new menus, everything. Like I'm still figuring this camera out. But the white balance in here is amazing. And then of course, glass. Glass is huge. This lens is part of the reason I picked this camera. This is a 28 to 200. So it's super wide, even though it's long. Well, not super wide, but pretty wide, even though it's long. But it's got a 200 mil zoom. So it really is like my lens I have on here, which is the 12 to 35, and then my 35 to 70 on Micro Four Thirds. It's like having the two lenses combined. And then it's f2.8. The lower the f-stop, the faster the glass, the more background blur you get. That's something some of us are looking for, some of us are not. So this is what I bought for me. And honestly, this is 100% thanks to you. I've been saving my YouTube money for a long time to purchase this. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your support and supporting me on this channel. Thank you for watching the live stream. All I ever ask of anybody is like, comment, subscribe. I'm not out here asking you guys for money. I really appreciate Goldslinger and everybody who super chats. That is the nicest thing that anybody can possibly do to me. But I'm not asking for money. I'm really not. I mean, this is my hobby. This is what I do for fun, and I make a very small amount on it. So I really appreciate you guys doing this. Okay, let's see what we got. Alfredo Ruiz. I was considering this camera, but decided on the Blackmagic Pocket 4. Okay. So Blackmagic Pocket 4K is one that I think is just so cool. The colors that you can get off of it are amazing. It'll shoot raw video, and if you don't know what that is, it is like a raw photo. You just get the raw detail and you take it from there. It's the most amazing camera, but autofocus sucks on it. No flippy screen, and the battery sucks on it. So why would anybody want it? Well, honestly, for the money, you cannot get a better image. It is the nerd's camera. Like, you're going to have to rig this out with an additional battery, and you're going to have to manual focus it to do it. But when you get it right with that Pocket 4K, and it's one I personally thought about, you get cinema quality cameras. Like, they are insanely good, but they're not maybe an average person's camera. In fact, it was so nerdy, I couldn't get myself to shell out for it just because of the autofocus. Like, they are so insanely cool. I love them. Okay, OG187 Phase X, my boy. Thank you. I assume you're talking about me. So, yeah. Gold Slinger. I have a pilot's license, but for that life of me, I can operate a camera. Oh, yeah, that's way cool. Okay, Alfredo Arias. If you research Reef 17 months, you'll see what I can do. Alfredo, after this, I will be checking you out because I really want to see what you can do because that is cool. Okay, he's got it down here. Okay, cool. All right, Alex G's Aquarium. I picked an A7 R3 a few months ago. Great camera with lens. Considering the Sony 90mm macro, it's very sharp. Okay, this A7 R3 is actually a really smart choice. It's 41 megapixels, but you're going to get all of the amazing processing power of the other big Sonys, but it's going to be so much cheaper than that A7R4. It's like $1,000 cheaper. You're going to give up a few megapixels, but that's the big change with it. So you don't get the 4K, you don't get the 10-bit, you don't get the flippy screen, but in turn, you get full-on pro quality video, full on pro quality photos. Like, this is like one of the better wedding photographer cameras out there. Like, you can earn real money with this camera. That one he's talking about is a fantastic choice. And then glass. So he's talking about a 90mm macro. Something like that has got to be the next lens for this. If there's a downside to this lens, it's super wide. I can zoom in to the stuff in the back of the tank, which I really haven't been able to do before, which is wonderful. But it's up close stuff isn't so good. That's where the macro lenses come in handy. So those are great. But if you're on a budget, when you buy your little Polyblab Coral View lens, it comes with a macro lens. And plus, these guys do pretty good with their macro photography as well. Well, maybe not the BlackBerry. Actually, I loved my BlackBerry. It was a lot of fun. All right. Gold Slinger. I can't operate a camera to save my life. You know, I spent so much time in your position. It really is a hard one to learn. But this is a hobby I've personally picked up. So once you've got your cameras figured out, there's a lot of other stuff you're going to want. So lenses, I'm a big zoom fan. I like to be able to go wide and zoom. I'm very much an all-around shooter. I take these things to events like Magna and stuff like that. So, I mean, having the ability to quickly change views and all of that is fantastic. I love zooms. Macros are great when you need to be super zoomed in on stuff and you want to get those great close-up shots. They're fantastic. But, you know, phones are catching up. You're getting 3 built-in lenses now. Lenses are actually an important thing to think about when picking out your clip. So if you can see this one, you can see there's a single hole in it. This is the old Aquaria clip, the very first one. I don't know if they've come out with more or not. But it's kind of a problem because modern phones have, you know, a couple of lenses in them. Mine has 2, a lot of them have 3. So you got to buy the clip that actually fits the lens on the camera you want. So just make sure that that hole in the back looks pretty close to what's going to be the camera sensor it's going over on your cell phone. It's really important. Another big thing is going to be your audio quality. Audio kind of makes or breaks these videos. Almost nobody complains about image quality, but when the audio quality goes wrong, they say something. I use these Ceremonic mics. They're pretty good. I think the kit now is like $270, but you get the receiver, you get the double mics. They've been pretty good. Biggest problems I've had is these cords are real weak. Excuse me. It's not COVID, I swear. But these cords get a little weak, and over time, you'll get a little popping sound out of it as they start to lose their connection. So if you watch my videos and you hear the popping sound, that's because these mics, the cords are just terrible on them. It sucks. In fact, it was super embarrassing because I was using these to film Reef stock, and my battery door broke. And my cord went bad on this. So this is Reef stock 2019. I'm one of the speakers, and I've also got the job of filming the show. I've broken the battery door on my mic, and I've got a bad mic cord. So for Reef stock 2019, this thing was straight up jerry-rigged. I bribed a Biggs Lagoon with a beer to get some of their super glue to glue this thing. This is replaced, but it's this battery door back together just so I could power it through the conference. And then the cord I had all taped up and jerry-rigged so that it wouldn't pop too bad. And I think some of them did. But how embarrassing is it to give something like this to Julian Sprung? That was my life. I did it. We got the video, though. Turned out great. I don't know if it ever got posted, but it turned out great. I enjoyed it. It was one of the best shows, but you know, that's the kind of stuff you got to watch for. But microphones are great. Even if you're just using your iPhone, you can get you can plug one in, goes right into your normal iPhone fitting, hook it onto your lapel mic, use the cord, and then your audio will be great right here. You can walk around the conference, the show, your living room, whatever. They're fantastic. So if you've got this, and you want to take your video one step further, just a little lapel mic off is a great way to do it. All right, let's see if we got any more comments. Goldslinger, if you have the passion, you learn fast. True with anything. That's 100% true. And the passion is kind of a big part about what this is about. If you don't have the passion for photography and videography, your cell phone is your best friend. It's just there. It's easy to access. And honestly, even when you do get this big boy, you probably take most of your photos with this anyways. It's crazy how it works. But this really is a pro tool, and this is a consumer tool. And, you know, they work great. But this takes a lot of work for me to get the picture from here to Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, where this, I take a picture, make a quick edit, and hit send. Like, I can have the picture taken in online faster than I can take the picture and have it onto my computer. It's crazy. I love it. So we are about 40 minutes into this live stream, and we've talked a ton about camera gear, a ton about reefing, big things that I'm personally going to go over to finish this off is when looking for a camera, your budget is everything. If you can afford the best, buy the best, but only if you want the best. For most people, get a cell phone, find a nice gel filter that's going to get you where you want to be. Just, look at the thing in back. Good lapel mic is always great for the audio if you're doing video. So those are my top tips. And then these guys are so much fun. So if you're into photography, it's a great hobby. It's something to get into. But the image quality, but to make a big difference on image quality, to go from here to here is crazy expensive. You're going to double or triple your cost to get like a reasonably good improvement in quality. I mean, I can definitely tell the difference between the two, but the cost difference is insane. So unless it's a business, unless it's like a passion, stick with your cell phone. It's the way to go. All right. Well, thanks for watching this episode of Mile High Reefers. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you to all of you. And thank you so much, Gold Slinger. I really appreciate you. All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.